Okay, so let me start with the obvious. I'm not here, as Leah already told you. Corinne and I are away watching our 19-year-old son, Gabe, play college basketball. It's funny because I'm actually taping this on Thursday, which is my birthday. And some of you might know that this is a milestone birthday for me. And you might be wondering how old I am. I would love to tell you. I think something might have just happened with the video. Was there? Anyways, I'll just keep going. So as a birthday present to me, I would just ask you guys, watch the screens instead of the stage today. But Corinne and I will be back today at 4 o'clock for our HTV night, Home Team Vision Night. And I actually can't wait for it. We're going to talk about the next 2 years at Southside Church. And I really believe this when I say it. It's not a catchphrase for me. I really, truly believe that for our church, the best is absolutely yet to come. So you're going to love being there. And who's it for? It's for everybody who serves at Southside Church or who is thinking about serving at Southside Church. It's funny because last week somebody asked me, how many people does it take to make church run on any given Sunday morning? And so this week I kind of went around and I counted it up. And it's actually about 170 people, from the parking team to the setup team to the takedown team to the patio team to the kids team to the tech team and the welcome team and the hospitality team and the ushers and sound team and the music team and everybody that makes church happen. It's about 170 people. When I say that to you, you might be thinking, oh, you probably don't need my help then. No, we could really use your help because our church is growing and we're advancing and we're moving forward and we could really, really use your help. And here's what I'm telling you. If you step up to help, you will be helped. That when you give, you'll get. So why don't you start serving? And why don't you make your first step to serving? Show up at 4 o'clock today for the HTV night, the Home Team Vision Night. And here's how you do that. Whether you are serving right now or whether you're thinking about serving, you need to text the keyword HOME to 604-670-3040. And you're going to get a link to a RSVP form, and we would love it if you could fill that out. Okay, because we have food to prepare, we have childcare to prepare, and it would be really awesome if you could make sure that before you come at 4 o'clock this afternoon that you fill that thing out. We're going to be there for about an hour and a half. It's going to be exciting, and I can't wait to be there with you. So we're in week 2 of this 3-week series called Miracle, and I got to thinking, as I look back at 2018, that for me, 2018 was a year of a lot of desperation prayers. 2018 was a year for me where there was challenges in my life and there was situations in my life that there were people who I really, really love that were facing struggles that were so heavy that they almost drove us all to our knees, and we cried out to God for help in desperation. And looking back at 2018, I would have to say that I learned again that our God is faithful, and He's good, and He's with us, and He's for us, and we can actually trust Him. I don't always understand Him. I don't understand why things happen, why God allows some things to happen that He allows to happen, but I absolutely trust Him. But I was thinking, after 2018 being a year of so many desperation prayers, I started thinking about you. And I started thinking that here at the front end of 2019, I wanted to pray now for a miraculous 2019 for you. You might be saying, well, what do you mean pray for me, Mike? You don't even know me. Yeah, you're right. I don't know you. But there's some things that I know about you. I know that you're not an accident. I know that you're not a mistake. I know that you're not a random result of time plus matter plus chance. I know this about you, that you were created on purpose, with a purpose, for a purpose, by a God who does not make mistakes. That the God who spoke the universe into existence spoke you into existence. I know that. I know that He loves you. No matter who you are, or where you've been, or what you've done, I know that He loves you completely. I know that He's with you. I know that He's for you. And I know that He has a plan for your past, your present, your future, and your eternity. And here's the thing, that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that part of His plan for your life is that you would be here today. That months ago when I started writing this sermon, God knew that you would be here. And I'm telling you, I'm praying for you, I'm believing for you that 2019 is going to be a miraculous year. And to be truthful, I would ask that you would do the same for me. Pray for me, that 2019 would be a miraculous year for me also, and for our whole church. So what does it mean to pray for a miraculous year? Well, I think first what it means is that we're praying that the God of miracles would do miracles in our lives. Big ones and small ones, quiet ones and loud ones, private miracles and public miracles, once in a lifetime miracles, and moment by moment, day by day miracles. I think we're praying for that, right? But I think if we want to have a miraculous year, we're going to need more than just the God of miracles to do the miracles that we know that he's going to do. We're going to need eyes to see, hearts to celebrate, and mouths to spread the word. We're going to need eyes to see the miracles that are all around us every day. See, I think so often we just overlook the miracles that God works in our lives every day, and we make the miraculous into the mundane. It's like the story I told you last week of the guy hanging off a cliff by a tree branch and starting to slip, and he cries out to God, God, please help me, I'm going to fall down this cliff. And just as he's done praying, a helicopter comes over the horizon and rescues him, and he says, never mind, God, a helicopter came. We can be that way a little bit with God. We can miss the miracles all around us. So I'm praying for you that the God of miracles would do miracles, but that you would have eyes to see the miracles all around you. And not only that, but a heart to celebrate. Here's what I know about 2019 for you. If you look around this world in 2019 for things to grumble about, you're never going to run out. But if you choose this year to look around this world for things to be grateful for things to celebrate, you're never going to run out. So I'm praying that God would give you a heart of celebration, a heart of gratitude this year, and finally a mouth to spread the word. That you would understand that God has a plan for every person in your life, and part of his plan for them is to place you in their path. And just to tell them your story. That there's a God who's with you and for you, who loves you completely, who sent his son, Jesus, who changes everything for you and can absolutely do the same for them. So I'm praying for you. I'm praying that 2019 would be a miraculous year. Could you please pray the same for me and for our church? And so my plan in this series was to kind of go through 3 of Jesus' miracles and use those miracles as a springboard into our miraculous 2019. And so last week we talked about the first of Jesus' miracles. He turned 500 liters of water into 500 liters of wine. And I told you this last week, you need to invite Jesus into every area of your life, every area of your life. And if you do, he'll show up and he'll bring the wine. In the Bible, wine refers to the presence and the power of God, the presence and the power of God. Isn't that awesome? So this year we invite him into every area, and his presence will lead us, and his power will change us. And next week, I want to talk to you about what I think might be the most famous of all Jesus' miracles. But today, I want to talk about a miracle that actually is the only miracle that shows up in all 4 New Testament Gospels. See, the way the Bible works is the Bible is kind of split into 2 parts. There's the Old Testament, and the Old Testament talks about the power and the plan and the people of God before Jesus steps into human history. That's the Old Testament. But then the New Testament talks about Jesus, his life, his death, his resurrection, his church, and his hope that comes with his return. And so the New Testament actually opens up with 4 Gospels. Gospel means good news. It's 4 different perspectives on the story of Jesus. Matthew's perspective, Mark's perspective, Luke's perspective, and John's. They're all congruent, they're all consistent, they all corroborate one another, but it's 4 different perspectives. And if you read through all 4 of those Gospels, you'll see that there's 37 miracles of Jesus in those 4 Gospels. Now, Jesus performed a lot more miracles than that, but those were the 37 that God led these men to write down. But only one of the 37 miracles that Jesus performed is found in all 4 Gospels. So I want to read you the story of that miracle out of the 4th Gospel, the Gospel of John, chapter 6. It says this, sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, and a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw the great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than a half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have 1 bite." Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there, plus women and children. Jesus then took the loaf, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who has come into the world." So there's a hero in this story. Who's the hero? Anybody tell me who the hero is? Anyone? Jesus. By the way, my staff is here as I record this. They're here because it's my birthday, and they love me, and they just wanted to be here to support me, and also because I told them that I would buy them lunch if they came. So yeah. But you're right. The hero of this story is Jesus. I want to tell you about something about Southside Church, by the way. Jesus is the hero. Like, we believe that Jesus is the hero of history. We believe that Jesus changes everything. John 3:16 says it this way, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life." Well, that's powerful. Jesus came to save the world. But you know what? It's also personal. Like, Jesus stepped into human history on a rescue mission. And if you were the only one in history who needed to be rescued, he would have come for you. Jesus died on the cross for the forgiveness of sins. You want to know something? That if you were the only one in history who needed to be forgiven, Jesus would have died for you. And Jesus rose again to lead the world down this road called life that starts now and stretches into eternity. And if you were the only one who needed salvation, Jesus would have rose again just for you. Jesus is the hero. But there's an unsung hero in this story too. So the unsung hero is actually the little boy who packed a lunch. I have no idea what the rest of this crowd was doing. I have no idea why no one else brought a lunch. But the little boy is the unsung hero because he brought 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And every time I talk about this miracle, Corinne always corrects me. She says, well, there's actually an unsung hero behind this unsung hero. It's the little boy's mom who probably packed him the lunch. It's true, and it actually makes my point. Here's what I want to tell you. Heroes come in all shapes and sizes. So important. Look, as we press into a miraculous 2019, you need to hear me. Heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Like, I think as a culture sometimes we think heroes are only famous people. Professional athletes, movie stars, or an astronaut or something like that. But what I'm telling you is that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. In fact, to the degree that I just want to make 2 points today, just 2. First point, we can be heroes. Second point, we should be heroes. We can be heroes, and we should be heroes. I'll tell you how I would define a hero. I would define a hero as a person with the nobility of character, with the generosity and the courage and the selflessness to bring help and hope to another person or group of people. Now, let me tell you that again. Here's what a hero is to me. A hero is a person with the nobility of character, the generosity, the courage, the selflessness to bring help and hope to another person or a group of people. We can be heroes. Like, we've talked a lot about that Philo of Alexandria quote, "Be kind, everyone you know is fighting a great battle." That's true. We should be kind. But you know what? It's hard to be kind to people who are fighting a great battle. Have you ever noticed that? Like, that embattled people battle people? That troubled people are trouble? Like, when someone's fighting a great battle, they're the last person you want to be kind to because usually they're a pain. But what about this? What if we choose to be kind to people, even people who are fighting a great battle? Well, that would be heroic, right? We can be heroes. Last week I gave you another little saying. I said, be quiet. Be quiet. Everyone you meet has an important story. That's hard to do. It's hard to be quiet. It's hard to ask more questions than make statements. It's hard to care about other people's story because inside of you and inside of me, there's this part of me that gravitates towards this belief that life is a movie about me. And everybody else is just a supporting actor. And so they just all need to shut up and listen to my story. But what if we decided that we were going to seek first this year to understand and then to be understood? What if we were going to ask a lot more questions and make a lot less statements? Well, you know what? That would be heroic. We can be heroes. Or what if we decide this year that we're going to be real? Like vulnerable, you know? Like not pretend that we're perfect, but admit that we're weak, that we have frailty, that we have fear, that we even have failures. Like what if we decided this year to get real? That's intimidating, right? But I'll tell you what will happen. If you decide to get real this year, you're going to give other people the permission to do the same. And all of a sudden, something miraculous is going to happen, something beautiful. You're going to have these relationships where it's like real me and real you. Authenticity. Well, that's heroic. So we can be heroes. Singing this week about parents. Moms and dads. Maybe even especially single parents. And there are days when it's easy, but there are days when it's not easy. There are days when you feel like you've run out of kindness, and you run out of patience, and you run out of hope. Well, what about the parents that decide, even when it feels like I've run out of all that stuff, I'm going to dig just a little bit deeper, I'm going to find a little more patience, a little more kindness, a little more hope to get me through this day? Well, that would be heroic. Like, we can be heroes. Well, what about the little boy in this story? It's a story about resources, right? He shares what he has with people who need help and hope. So I want to talk a little bit today about money. And I know sometimes when churches talk about money, it gets really weird, but can I tell you one thing? It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about money today. I guarantee it. And I understand we in churches sometimes make the money thing really weird. There's two issues that we make weird when we talk about sex and when we talk about money. Sometimes you hear churches talk about sex and they talk something like this. Sex is gross and dirty and horrible. Save it for the one you love. It doesn't make any sense, right? Sex is actually awesome and beautiful and powerful and profound, and it's a gift from God. Now, I will tell you this, that since God created sex and since he gave the gift, he says you should probably use it in a proper context, right? Like it's like the chainsaw you got for Christmas, right? Like you can use it to cut your hair if you want, but I don't think you should. I think you might get hurt. Churches also get weird when they talk about money. Well, money is bad, and it's evil, and people who want to make money are greedy and selfish. Hey, can you give us a little bit? No, money is awesome. Money is a gift. Money is a resource. Money is an opportunity. And here's what I think. The way that we handle money, we can be heroes. And I know if you want to be heroic with your money, you got to have some. And I mention that because I think a lot of times what Christians will do is they'll be like a train wreck financially, and then they'll pray, God, work a miracle in my finances. It reminds me a little bit of back in the day when I used to be a youth leader, or a youth pastor actually, and I had between like 30 and 40 youth leaders, most of them young adults, a majority of these young adults, young men. And so we would meet once a month for a youth leaders meeting, and we would have a potluck. And I'll tell you what, those potlucks were something. Like the things that we would have on our potlucks was hilarious. You know, so the potluck would basically look like this. Nanaimo bars, which is awesome, by the way. Pop-Tarts, Doritos, donuts, licorice, and Pepsi. that was the potluck. And, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think all that stuff is delicious. I love it. I think those are great potluck items. But what would always happen is everyone would gather together, the potluck would get laid out, and then someone would say, hey, Mike, could you pray for the food before we eat? And I never really knew how to pray. Like, dear God, bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies. Like, what are you really asking God to do, right? Like, God, please change the physical composition of this food, right? Like, turn these Twizzlers into quinoa. Turn the Doritos into broccoli, and turn the Pop-Tarts into tuna. Please, God. It's kind of the same thing with our finances a little bit. Like, you got to get on top of your finances, right? Like, there's a verse in Proverbs 21, verse 5 that says this way: the plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. I think you got to have a plan. And another word to describe a financial plan is like budget. I think it's Dave Ramsey that says a budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. But can I just start here? You should probably know how much money comes in every month and how much money goes out every month. You say, Mike, whoa, like, I'm sure glad I came to church today. That's amazing information. Well, you know what's funny about that actually is there's a lot of people who don't know how much money comes in every month. And a vast majority of Canadians definitely do not know how much money goes out every month. Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. It's basically the no news is good news syndrome. We live in a culture that encourages debt, right? Like credit cards and you need it now, you got to have it today, and you don't have to pay for 6 months. Like it's a culture that encourages debt, and there's a lot of Canadians, in fact, a majority of Canadians actually spend more money every month than they make. But we don't necessarily always know that because we kind of think, well, no news is good news, so I just won't look, right? But the truth is, no news isn't good news. No news is no news. No news is just no news. It's kind of like the little kid playing hide and go seek, and they're standing in the middle of the living room with their eyes closed. Like, if I can't see them, they can't see me. Well, it doesn't actually work. Like, no news is no news. And you should know how much money comes in every month and how much money goes out every month. And what I want to do to help you a little bit is I want to give you a next step that you can take today. So if finances are a struggle for you, so can I define that a little bit? If you are somebody who you do not know how much money comes in every month, or you do not know how much money goes out every month, or you do know, and you know that more money is going out every month than coming in every month. If you're someone who finds yourself stressed out about finances, or if you're a person who your relationships conflict is rising in your relationships because of your finances, here's what you need to do. I'll give you a next step. Text the keyword FLE, well, it's not really a word, but FLE to 604-670-3040. And what we'll do is we'll begin getting you signed up for what's called the Financial Learning Experience. And can I tell you something right up front? It's not some weird hokey church program where you're going to come into a room where we're going to say, you know how you can fix your finances? Give all your money to the church. No, it's actually a program where we're going to help you win with your money, because it's actually a big deal. You want to see miracles in 2019? One of the things that you can do right now is get on top of your finances. If you're married, it'll change your marriage. If you're single, it'll change your singleness. It'll change your future marriage. If you're a parent, it'll change your parenting. It'll change your kids, not only in the example that you set, but in the legacy that you're going to be able to leave. You should text FLE to 670-3040. 604-670-3040. You should do that. Because you should start. I think it was Vince Lombardi once who said, the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people, it's not a lack of opportunity. It's not a lack of talent. It's not a lack of ability. It's a lack of will. So you should get started. So here's what you don't do. You don't spend 2019 living on Pop-Tarts, Pepsi, and Doritos, but at the same time walk around saying, I'm going to be lean and mean for 2019. It doesn't. That's good, by the way. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So now let me take that a step further. So you get on top of your finances, and then you deal with them in a heroic fashion. We can be heroes. like the little boy in the story. He can't feed everyone, but he does something, right? He has 5 loaves and 2 fish, and he gives them to Jesus. So he does what he can do, and then Jesus takes the food and does what only he can do. He feeds thousands of hungry people. Well, that's what giving to the church is. That's what it is to give to the church. To do what you can do and trust that Jesus will do what only he can do. So the Bible talks about tithing. Tithing is when you bring the first tenth of everything that you make back to God, back to the church. I was talking to somebody near the end of last year, someone who's been entrusted with lots of resources in their life, and they've given really generously to our church. And I said to him, man, thank you for supporting Southside Church. He said, you can thank me, but you got to understand something, Mike. It's not mine. It all comes from God. It's all for God. So there's this thought that when we tithe, we just bring the first tenth of what God has blessed us with back to him. We do what we can do and trust him to do what only he can do. And when we do that, we can be heroes. You get that, right? Like, over the last few years, this is what we've realized over and over and over again, is that at Southside Church, we are for this city. Can I say that in a different way? That God looked at this city. Like, in my opinion, the most beautiful city on the planet. He looked at this city called Chilliwack, one of the fastest growing cities in our country, with the fastest growing school district in BC, with young families pouring in. And he looked at Chilliwack and he said, that city needs hope and help today, tomorrow, and for generations. And he had an idea. And that idea is us. That idea is Southside Church. See, and here's what we do. We just do what we can do. And we know that Jesus does what only he can do. He brings hope and he brings help physically and spiritually to a city that needs it. I told you last week, in the last 2 weeks of December, we saw 63 people make first-time commitments to Jesus. It's incredible. And then over our Christmas services, we saw another attendance record. Well, can I give you another update? Last week, Sunday, was our January kickoff, and we set another attendance record for January kickoffs. So, Mike, you talk about numbers a lot. I know, I love it. I talk about numbers a lot, and I will always talk about numbers because here's what I know, and you know it too. Every number has a name, every name has a story, every story matters to God. Every single person that walks through the doors of our church every single Sunday is a miracle. And every time somebody takes a next step with Jesus, that's a miracle. Whether it's their first step or their 500th. Whether they commit their life to Jesus for the first time, that's a miracle. But when a marriage is saved, that's a miracle. When a family is restored, that's a miracle. When an addiction is broken, that's a miracle. When a person or a couple walks in here and they look back and all they can see in their family tree, as far back as they can look, is misery. When they look back and they see a cycle of sorrow that's been running through their family tree for generations, broken people, breaking people, hurting people over and over and over again. When somebody walks through the doors of our church and says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take an axe to the poisonous roots of my family tree. When they pick up that axe and start to chop, that's a miracle. And when they plant a new family tree, and this new family tree is called hope and love and strength and legacy, that's a miracle. But here's what I know. When you give to this church, we can be heroes. We can be heroes. So we can be heroes, and we should be heroes. I guess what I'm trying to say to you is that you can't outgive God. You can't outgive God. Isn't it amazing in this story? Little boy leaves home in the morning with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. He comes back that night with what? 12 baskets of leftovers. I just want you to take a second and imagine the scene. He walks up, he's got some friends helping him carry it, and his mom says, what happened? Well, what's the answer? Jesus happened. can I tell you something? You can't outgive God. God is a giver. He is generosity. He is love. You can't outgive God. From the very beginning, years and years and years before Corinne and I ever started working at Southside Church, we tithed to this church. And for us, the tithe was kind of a baseline, to be honest. That's kind of like the low end, but when we look around at everything that our church is doing, when we look at the partnerships that our church has with the Haiti Free School, with the Chehalis School, with foster kids who have next to nothing, and we support them. When we look at the partnership that Southside Church has with pregnant women in crisis, single parent homes. When we think about the Sunshine Fund that was established just last month, December of 2018, where we give tangible financial help to families dealing with critical illness, we should be heroes. And you know what we keep finding? Is we can't outgive God. Because He's generous. In fact, I would almost go as far as to say this. No, I would go as far as to say this. If you think you can outgive God, that's because you never tried. I meet people almost like weekly who talk to me about how blessed they've been by stepping up and being a part of what we're doing at Southside. Like, it makes a difference, right? Like, everything that's happening here, every person that walks through those doors, like the chairs that you're sitting on right now, someone paid for those. The projector that's playing my mug into this gym right now, somebody paid for that. The equipment in the kids' end, someone paid for that. The rental for this facility, somebody paid for that. And yet, again and again, I talk to people and they say, man, I'm pumped to do it because you can't outgive God. I'll end with one story. I find it kind of comical that I'm up here today. Well, not literally. Anyways, that I'm talking about budgeting and planning and being financially on top of stuff. Because the truth is, for both Corinne and I, we are not, by nature, super organized planners. We're both kind of creative people. We're kind of spur-of-the-moment people. I'll give you one example. We got married on May 31st, 1991 in Red Deer, Alberta. We had paid the rental for an apartment starting June 1st of 1991 in Abbotsford. So after the wedding, I said to Corinne, we need to go down to Disneyland for a honeymoon. It's going to be awesome. And so we started driving down to Disneyland and in my 1987 Plymouth Turismo with everything that we owned in the hatchback of the Turismo. So we're driving down to Disneyland, and I'm like, here's what we're going to do, Corinne. We're going to go down to LA. It's going to be amazing. We're going to go to Disneyland for 3 days, maybe Universal Studios, SeaWorld. Who knows? The sky is the limit. So I get about 3/4 of the way down there, and I went to get money out of the bank machine. And the money came out, and then so did a little slip of paper which had my balance. And I looked at it, and I was like, oh boy. So I got in the car. I said, hey, Corinne, remember when I said we were going to go to Disneyland and SeaWorld and Universal Studios? We're not. We're going to go to Disneyland, not for 3 days, but for 1 day. So for Corinne's honeymoon was us sprinting around Disneyland as fast as we could to try to see everything in 1 day, and then we drove through the night and got home. But from the very first week of our marriage, we tithed. And we found, even back then, that you can't outgive God. You know what He did? He gave us wisdom to learn to be a little bit more organized and a little bit more planning. To do a little bit more planning. He's blessed us. You know that we've never had a fight about money in our entire marriage? 28 years and 6 kids later. We never fought. We're not stressed out about it. We just feel blessed. We're not rich people, but you know what? We're incredibly, completely blessed. I'll tell you this. I really believe that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Like, a hero is somebody who, through the nobility of their character, through their courage, through their selflessness and through their generosity, brings hope and help to another person or a group of people. so we can be heroes. And we should be heroes. Let's pray. Dear God, I pray for everybody here today, for everybody watching this online later, that you would give them a miraculous 2019. And God, I pray that as you continue to work miracles in our lives, that you would give us eyes to see and hearts of gratitude and mouths to spread the word about a God who is truly with us and for us, and about a Savior named Jesus who changes everything. In your name, amen. Amen.